I'm just waiting for you.
Okay, very good. Good morning. This is Senate Health and Welfare Committee. January 30, Senator Lyons is testifying before another committee. We do have a packed agenda for this morning, so we're going to kick right off. We'll start with S215, an act relating to Three Squares, Vermont. And then after that, at about 11, we'll go into S109, an act relating to Medicare coverage for doula services, followed by a potential markup to that same bill. And we're, again, kicking off with S215. And we'll have a short walkthrough from Senator Hardy, followed by Legislative Counsel Katie McGlynn. And it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Weeks. Good morning, everyone. Today is SNAP Awareness Day, and I know we're going to get some testimony more about what that entails and what that means. But the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is an important part of our safety net here in Vermont and across the country to make sure that people have access to good, healthy food. S215 is part of that effort to make sure that everybody in our population has access to food in a way that is most convenient and accessible to them. So it does two things. It first creates an avenue for Vermont to participate in the restaurant meals program, which is a federal program that states can opt into to allow recipients of SNAP benefits to use their EBT cards, the sort of like little, everybody knows what an EBT card is at this point, I guess, card to access their SNAP benefits at a restaurant that is participating in the program. So this would have Vermont participate in that and provide technical assistance to restaurants so that they can also be part of it. It is a rather challenging federal program, so restaurants do need help, and it would be through a partnership with AHS, Agency of Human Services, that runs SNAP, and ACCD, Agency of Commerce and Community Development, that works with small businesses and restaurants to provide that assistance. So there would be a position for that in AHS. And the second part of the bill is to create a report back to the legislature on changing the Three Squares Vermont, which is another name for SNAP benefit calculation, to make it a moderate cost food plan benefit, which would be increasing the level of benefits for certain recipients of SNAP benefits. And this is just a report back to say what it would entail, what the estimated cost is, and what kind of hurdles may be involved. This would enable us to have more information about whether or not we wanted to expand SNAP in this way. I think both of these are really important because the target audience, or the target recipients for both of these programs, are generally older Vermonters and Vermonters with disabilities, and especially for the restaurant program, Vermonters who are unhoused and are not able to have their own kitchen to cook their food in, and therefore accessing that food through a restaurant is really very, very helpful. So these are really trying to get food access to populations that we haven't focused on recently in legislation. So that is that, and then Katie can tell you the details of the bill.
Thank you. Katie McGlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel. Senator Hardy did a really great job. I don't know if there's much left to say, but I'll try to find something.
Do you want to bring the bill up?
Yes, I do. I'm almost there.
I think I should eat during this bill.
There we go.
Especially healthy food.
Exactly. So Senator Hardy said there are two major provisions in this bill. The first is to opt into the restaurant meals program. So SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is the name of the federal program. You'll hear Three Squares Vermont. That's sort of the Vermont iteration of SNAP. And through SNAP, states have the option to opt into the restaurant meals program. From the USDA's website, it looks like about 9 other states have opted in. And this enables eligible individuals to use their EBT card to purchase prepared food from a restaurant. It's voluntary for restaurants to participate in the program, and that you'll see in the bill, there's language about coordination with AHS, so that AHS is supporting restaurants that choose to participate. Also, there are parameters for who would be eligible to participate in the restaurant meals program, and I'm sure you'll hear more about this from DCF. But some of the parameters are individuals who are 60 or older, individuals who are homeless, individuals with disabilities, or the spouse of a person who is eligible through one of those other categories. So those are the individuals who would benefit from the restaurant meals program. And then the second provision has to do with changing the way the minimum benefit of 3 squares, the minimum 3 squares Vermont benefit is calculated. So there are 4 categories of food plans that the USDA calculates with regularity. The Thrifty Food Plan is the food plan that the minimum 3 squares Vermont benefit is based on. So there's also, there's Thrifty, there's the low income moderate plan, and then there's a higher level plan. So this language creates a report to the General Assembly to look at moving from the Thrifty Food Plan to the second highest tier, which is the moderate food plan. And what would it look like, both monetarily, like how would the benefit shift, but also what technology changes might be necessary to make that shift. And of course, that would be a state-funded supplement to the existing benefit, because we, through the federal government, would have an obligation to use the Thrifty plan. So to go above and beyond that would be state funds to make up that difference. So with that said, let's look at the actual language of the bill. So first, we are making an amendment to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program existing language. And the current language in statute says that the state may participate in the Supplemental Nutrition Program. This changes it to shall participate in the program. The reason why this change is being made now in this bill is because we're adding a section to tell the state to participate in the restaurant meals program, and that's a shall. So it seems strange to direct the state to participate, a shall, must participate in the restaurant meals program, while making SNAP itself not a mandatory, a may instead of a shall. So that's why the change was made, so that both participation in SNAP is mandatory and participation in the restaurant meals program is mandatory, to create that parallel. So the new section that would be added with regard to the restaurant meals program says that the state is to participate in SNAP's restaurant meals program. The restaurant meals program shall be administered by AHS in consultation with the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Restaurant participation in the restaurant meals program is to be voluntary. AHS, in consultation with ACCD, is to develop and publish on its website a list of eligibility criteria for restaurant participation in the program, including that participating restaurants are licensed pursuant to our licensing statutes and corresponding rules. The eligibility criteria shall advance the following goals: that locally produced foods are widely available through this program. Restaurants serving foods that represent diverse cultural traditions are participating in the program. Participating restaurants are located in geographically diverse regions of the state. So those are the goals for restaurant participation in the program.
So who's the gatekeeper for who qualifies, who gets listed as a restaurant, participating restaurant?
As drafted, AHS would be administering the program. So they would be the one establishing the criteria and working with restaurants that want to participate.
Use the 3 criteria to determine.
Not necessarily. These are goals. So it's telling both Human Services in consultation with ACCD to set up what the criteria is. And then these are sort of like the the foundational goals, that will, inform their criteria making.
Is this anything to do with the Everybody Eats program?
I'm not sure.
So that can I answer that?
Please.
Or can I?
Please.
Yeah. The Everybody Eats program was a program that we established during the pandemic that restaurants participated in, and they got state funding. They got sort of the COVID relief dollars to create meals that then people could come to the restaurants and pick up. Usually takeout meals.
Right.
And a lot of restaurants around the state participated in it. This is not the same as that, but I think there's an assumption that a lot of those restaurants that participated in that would probably be interested in doing this kind of thing. So it's sort of a good kind of next step, maybe.
Because Gatekeeper stimulated some of my memory about people that were eligible and taking advantage of that weren't. I didn't think should be eligible.
Oh, you mean the actual people, not the
Correct.
restaurants?
Correct.
Oh. This would be,
Yeah,
you
who's
would
the
have to be
gatekeeper?
eligible for
Okay.
SNAP to be able to do it.
So if I could, if Senator Hardy, you're the sponsor of the bill.
Mhm.
So what's anticipated when restaurants across Vermont, how do they learn about the program? How do they sign up for the program? So they're listed and become vetted?
I mean, I think that's probably a good question for AHS when they come and test, and there's probably somebody here is in the room. Yes, thank you. About how they let people know about 3 Squares Vermont and how they would work with restaurants. There is a position in the bill that would be for this program, and they would work also with ACCD, which has a more of a relationship with small businesses than AHS does.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that teed us up because section 3 is the position. Fiscal year 25, 1 new permanent classified position, which is to be the Restaurant Meals Program Navigators, authorized and established within AHS. And in the coming fiscal year, 85,000 is appropriated from the general fund to AHS to support the position that's established in A. The position is to provide technical assistance to restaurants applying to and participating in the Restaurant Meals Program. So that is the establishment of the position. It's a permanent position, so even though you only have an appropriation for fiscal year 25, the idea is that it would become part of the base moving forward. Okay, so that is the Restaurant Meals Program. We're transitioning to look at this report back on the way that the benefit is calculated. So by January 1 of 2025, this directs DCF to submit a transition plan to various committees detailing the process and resources necessary to calculate the minimum benefit for 3 Squares Vermont participants at 30% of the USDA's moderate food plan, including the nature, cost, and timeline for any IT changes needed to implement the new benefit calculation, the annual cost of implementing the increased 3 Squares Vermont benefit, the number and type of additional staff positions necessary to implement the new benefit calculation, and any statutory changes or federal approvals necessary to implement the new benefit calculation. And then we have the effective date of July 1, 24. Go ahead, keep going.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so questions from the committee? Okay, my recommendation is we have 4 more presenters. Next up is Lisa Wisdom. And if we can limit to about 10 minutes for testimony or less, that would be very helpful.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Leslie Wisdom, the Food and Nutrition Program Director, also known as the SNAP Director for Vermont. I work for Department for Children and Families, the Economic Services Division. So I think if I could start with a little bit of brief background on the way SNAP benefits are delivered to clients in the state. So since around 2004, the federal government has required states to deliver benefits for SNAP on EBT cards. which work just like a debit card. They are coded behind the scenes as a food benefit, so you can use them only at authorized SNAP grocery stores or convenience stores or delis, and they're only you can only purchase SNAP eligible food items with the card because that's the coding behind the card. So Vermont is one of only 5 states that has the authority to issue SNAP benefits as cash rather than this food benefit on the EBT card. And we've had that authority since, I have a memo dated back to 1990s to Senator Kitchell, who was actually the Secretary of AHS at the time. And the Congress codified in statute that states with existing pilot programs to issue SNAP benefits as cash can continue to do that. So we're only one of 5. The other states are, let's see, Minnesota, Ohio, Oregon, Utah, and then Vermont. So the waiver and the ability that we have in Vermont to issue benefits as cash is for households where all members, let's see, are 65 or older and or disabled. And we issue those benefits to these households directly depositing into their checking account, or we send them a check every month if they prefer, or we load it onto that EBT card, but it's as a cash benefit rather than a food benefit. So they actually can take that to an ATM and take cash out. And so these households, because it's cash, they can use their benefits anywhere they want to. So they could buy restaurant meals, they could buy hot and prepared foods at grocery stores, which generally are prohibited for SNAP recipients.
Or they can take the cash and go buy cigarettes and alcohol, too. I've seen that. So who's the gatekeeper on that?
So we do share what SNAP eligible items, but when someone has cash, that means they could replace that specific dollar may not be the SNAP dollar, that might be one of their other dollars that's not SNAP. But it really is only for those households where everyone is 65 or older and or disabled.
You get my point, though.
I totally understand your point.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I was just wondering, so if somebody doesn't have a bank account or the ability to use, get their benefits, because I'm assuming you sort of transfer them into somebody's bank, or how does the transfer of the money work?
We do. So the cash out, all of the SNAP benefits are federal dollars. There's no state dollars. And most of those benefits don't run through the state. They go directly through our EBT card processor, except for the small number of cash out folks who receive the benefits via direct deposit or a check. So those run through the state to get directly deposited. Otherwise, it goes on the EBT card as a cash benefit.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't have a bank account, they would get an EBT card, basically?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And 42% of the SNAP caseload in Vermont qualifies for cash out. So that is 16,697 households right now out of a total of almost 40,000.
So can you get your testimony in writing to us?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that'd be great, okay.
Definitely. Yes. So the reason Vermont has the cash out program is to help destigmatize the program and encourage households who might be reluctant who might qualify and could benefit from this program to apply for the program and participate. And I think that's an interesting intersection with the restaurant meals program, which the restaurant meals program is also, it's a program to help those who might not have the ability to prepare or store food, to be able to eat nutritious food. And it is only for households, the only households that could use the restaurant meals program are those with members who are 60 years or older, disabled, or experiencing homelessness. So the one group that our cash out option doesn't address is those experiencing homelessness. And we aren't allowed to add those to the cash out under the federal law. And just to give you a little bit more information about the restaurant meals program, there are 9 states currently that offer this program. None of those 9 states are one of the states that has the ability to use the cash out option. So in lieu of cash out, they're offering the restaurant meals program to be able to support those populations. And to participate, it is.
So in those other, sorry to interrupt, but in those other states, are those programs for restaurant use restricted to the 65 and older group? Are those with disabilities?
Yes,
Okay.
and experiencing homelessness.
That's an and, not an or.
Or, it's not, yes. So the restaurant meals program is a big lift to implement. So there is a new type of benefit that would be created on an EBT card. And there's a cost associated with that through our EBT card vendor to categorize that as a restaurant meals benefit. So those eligible SNAP households in our eligibility system, we would code them as eligible for restaurant meals. So when they swipe their card at a participating restaurant, it would be allowed. Other SNAP households would be denied that transaction or declined. And restaurants also would go through, there's the state approval process, depending on what we've set up as requirements for participating restaurants. There's also a federal approval process, and they have to be an approved EBT card vendor. So you don't use like the regular credit card machine. There is an EBT card processing machine that would be used so that it could read that EBT card and it be able to accept those transactions. I have had an initial conversation with USDA, that's our federal partner for SNAP, about some of my questions about the restaurant meals program. If this committee had any other specific questions, I'm happy to get those answers for you and provide them back if that's helpful. And I think that's kind of the background I wanted to provide around like the unique position that we're in Vermont to be able to already address some of the needs. I think that this bill is hoping to.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. This is really interesting stuff and stuff I didn't know about when the bill was introduced, but I'm curious, do you know how many people sort of fall into the unhoused category that get SNAP benefits that seem to be the group that would be the biggest beneficiaries if we're able to move forward with this bill?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I can follow up.
That would be great, because
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has heard the news about how many people are unhoused right now, and it seems like there must be a big chunk of people that could be helped by having access to be able to go get a quick meal or a good meal at a local restaurant. And then one of the things that might be helpful to learn from USDA is how they certify restaurants or get more information on how, because I think the restaurants themselves have to go through a process to be approved by the USDA in order to participate in the program. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes.
So getting more information on how that works and how we could help Vermont restaurants navigate that if they want to participate.
And to add on to that, is there continuity with states? I mean, is this a state level restaurant piece, or is it federally determined?
It's both for this program. So
Okay.
we would be, I think you talked about, we would set the requirements for participation that's in line with the goals of our program. So Katie McLean talked about those overarching goals. So we would set those criteria. And then once we approve, I think there's an MOU between the state and the restaurant. And then there's the secondary federal approval to be an approved restaurant provider.
So there are a lot of questions in that. In other words, are there restaurants that do this on a continuous basis and provide meals to folks with EBT? And then, are there any limitations to the use of the funds for restaurants? So a lot of sort of questions within that.
There is a requirement, I believe, for concessional pricing for restaurants that want to offer meals. So it's a more affordable pricing structure, I think, for SNAP recipients is the idea. The SNAP benefit doesn't provide 100% of someone's food budget, and we all know that going to restaurants costs more money. We definitely I blow through my food budget if I go to the restaurant more often than just preparing food at home. So that's one of the requirements. I don't know what the percentage is or if there's a specific like price reduction, but I can find that out.
Thank you.
So speaking of cost, being that restaurant meals are more expensive than groceries and such, as you just alluded to, is there an anticipated cost to Vermont? Or is this a federal, absorbed federally?
It's the SNAP benefit, so it's 100% the federal benefit, but a household could run out of their monthly benefit sooner before the end of the month.
That's fair. Couple of questions. For SNAP or EBT, you currently allow processed food, prepared food. Is that correct? Like in addition to groceries?
We don't. So SNAP eligible food items are those that you purchase at the grocery store and then you bring home and prepare a meal.
Okay.
There's a strict prohibition on buying prepared meals with your SNAP benefits. We were allowed during the most recent flooding in July, if you have a FEMA level disaster declaration that meets, and I'm not a FEMA person, but there's an individual assistance level of a declaration, states can apply for a waiver to allow SNAP recipients to buy hot and prepared foods because of the disaster emergency, and maybe their homes were impacted or grocery stores were flooded. But that is it's time limited and it's only tied to a FEMA disaster.
Good.
So, given where we are time-wise, I think what would be helpful is to have you send in your testimony and then the specific requirements that you've talked about. You've heard the questions, novices, and a lot of the details that you have. So it would be helpful to get that.
I was just raising my hand as a novice.
All those in favor?
It's complicated. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it is complicated, and it sounds like state by state decisions have been made that increase the complexity, but we know about complexity in here.
I love that. So I'm
Yeah.
like one of the
Yeah,
individuals.
I know. So when the bill came in, we thought slam dunk, this is simple. It's always more complicated than that. Yeah.
Should have a basketball hoop right there.
Yeah, we should, thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you,
Yeah,
Leslie.
thank you.
That's great. So, Honora's up.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Honora Horton. I'm the Executive Director of Hunger Free Vermont. And our mission is to end the injustice of hunger for everyone by prioritizing the people who are most impacted by hunger in our state to make permanent systemic change. So I want to thank you for having us in today to talk about S215, and it is also our second annual SNAP Awareness Day. And we invented, in partnership with the Vermont Food Bank, SNAP Awareness Day last year in order to come to the legislature and alert you all to what was happening then. And we had our SNAP Awareness Day in March, and April was the end of the pandemic era emergency allotments in SNAP. And at that time, households participating in Three Squares Vermont lost an average of $100 to $500 a month in food benefits. And the consequences of that are still being felt very severely by our lowest income households in the state. And so you have already heard and you know enough about SNAP and Three Squares Vermont, so I'm not going to review all of that. I would like to say a couple of other things about Three Squares Vermont benefits. Each month, Three Squares Vermont brings about $12 million into our state economy and our food systems. And this supports, of course, people who are living with low incomes in meeting their basic needs and not being hungry. But it also supports our local farmers and growers and businesses and communities. And the end of SNAP emergency allotments meant a drop in $6.5 million a month of funding into our state for people to buy food. And people who use 3 Squares Vermont, they have to qualify by earning 185% or less of the federal poverty level. So that is roughly an annual income of less than $26,000 for a single person or $55,000 for a family of 4. And I don't need to tell you in this committee in particular, the vast gap that is between our joint fiscal offices, basic needs budgets, and that number. Benefits are determined for people based on kind of a sliding scale with, and it depends on your household size, it depends on your income, it depends on particular kinds of expenses you might be able to deduct, like your rent or your mortgage or childcare costs. So families' benefits are calculated in a very individual way. And so if you're eligible and you make the kind of on the low end of income, your family could be eligible for a maximum benefit level. But if you are closer to the cutoff, then you would receive a smaller benefit. So for a single person in this federal fiscal year, the maximum food benefit 3 Squares that you could get with 3 Squares Vermont is $291 a month. And there's a guaranteed federal minimum benefit level for households of 1 and 2 people. And most households in Vermont that are eligible for 3 Squares Vermont and are 1 or 2 people are comprised of older Vermonters. So that federal minimum benefit is set at $23 a month. So you could apply for 3 Squares Vermont, you could go through the process, and you could end up with a whole $23 a month to supplement your food benefit. And that does not go very far, and it certainly doesn't go very far these days with the cost of food. And if you're a household of 3 or more, your qualifying benefit could be as low as $1 a month, or you could get a $0 benefit. So you could go through the process of applying and end up with very little to supplement. And so that is one challenge, and that's what the study piece of S215 is looking to explore. How could we provide a minimum 3 Squares Vermont benefit in Vermont that was in line with our Vermont values and was aligned with the way that our joint fiscal office calculates basic needs food budgets, which is to use the moderate food plan. Another thing just to understand about 3 Squares Vermont is that in 2022, according to UVM research, 40% of people in Vermont reported being food insecure, at least for some portion of that 12-month period. Yet only 11% of people in Vermont were participating in 3 Squares Vermont. And a main reason for that discrepancy is that the federal income cutoff for 3 Squares Vermont is so low that a lot of people, especially in high cost of living states like ours, are at risk of hunger but are not eligible to enroll in SNAP. Now, another challenge is stigma. So Leslie alluded to this already. The stigma and shame associated with applying for the program, and also how challenging it is to apply for the program. So right now, over 68,000 people in Vermont, including more than 20,000 children and 17,000 older adults, participate in 3 Squares Vermont. But this accounts for only about half of the people in our state who may be income eligible. So there are a lot of people in Vermont who are eligible, likely eligible, to enroll in 3 Squares Vermont who don't. And those are folks who are more likely to be closer to that income cutoff. So again, these are reasons why it would really make a profound difference for us to explore, how we might put a state floor under the minimum benefit of Food Squares Vermont. There are a lot of people who are not food secure, a lot of people who are at risk of hunger every month, who don't choose not to apply for Food Squares Vermont. And how could we make that benefit level for them more meaningful?
Question here.
Oh, yes.
So can you explain state floor? You use the term state floor.
Yes, so that is if the state of Vermont chose to calculate the minimum benefit amount for Vermont households based on a moderate food plan, then the state would add a supplement to those lowest benefit amounts.
Is that a element of the current bill, or is that a recommendation for the study?
The study. The bill asks the Agency of Human Services to take a look at what would be required to do that and how much it would cost and those sorts of things. Yeah. So I also don't need to tell you that we're experiencing a series of cascading crises, and especially it's hitting people with low incomes. And the pandemic was a hunger crisis for people with low incomes. The flooding this past summer is a hunger crisis. The end of pandemic era economic supports, including the end of SNAP emergency allotments, has perpetuated a hunger crisis. And recovering from these cascading crises is not something that anyone of our community organizations or partners or neighbors can accomplish on our own. As legislators, you can make policy choices that will ensure food security for everyone who lives here. Food security for all is possible. And once we achieve it, the ripple effects will be clearly visible in our communities and across our state. There are four critical actions you can take now to help fill the gaps that policy decisions at the federal level and natural disasters have created. We urge you to consider the following opportunities that are in front of you. Support the request for $5 million in base funding for the Vermont Food Bank to purchase food and support community-based partners. The Vermont Food Bank's network partners are seeing sustained record-setting visitation at food shelves and pantries across the state. Network partners continue to share that not only is the need greater, but more people who've otherwise never had to visit a food shelf are now leaning on their services to put food on the table. Support the request for $2 million in base funding for the Vermont Area Agencies on Aging to support the increased demand for Meals on Wheels to meet the nutritional needs of the growing demographic of older Vermonters. So Meals on Wheels is another way, in addition to the restaurant meals program, that addresses challenges that older people and people with disabilities have with getting food and preparing food that is healthy at home. And the demand is rising dramatically and can't be met with current funds. Also support the request for $478,500 in base funding to strengthen Vermont farm viability and address food security by sustaining two proven NOFA Vermont run programs, Crop Cash Plus, which allows people who are eligible for Food Squares Vermont to double their food dollars when they use them at farmers markets and farm stands, and Farm Share. And of course, support S215, which seeks to establish the restaurant meals program and directs the state SNAP agency to produce a transition plan to increase the SNAP minimum benefit amount for all participants. And you've already heard about those, so I'm not going to tell you about them. I will say that, and I know we have a restaurant owner here. Yeah, okay. So last thing, passing S215 would also make progress toward fulfilling on the Farm to Plate Network's newly released Vermont Food Security Roadmap. So thank you for your time and for your commitment to making informed policy choices to create food security for all of us.
Thank you. Question?
Thank you, ma'am. So are you or your organization concerned that the burn rate of a participant will, through their funds, will increase because you're now using restaurant services as opposed to groceries?
So, I mean, that could be the case. However, overall, I think that people who, so when you don't have any place to prepare food, so for people who are unhoused, they may even have SNAP benefits on their EBT card and really not be able to even fully use them because they have no place to store food that they would get at a grocery store or prepare it. So to my view, having them have access to hot restaurant meals is better than having them have access to nothing. Yeah. And, you know, and I think there are a lot of other things that our restaurants, I mean, I think this is not the Vermont Emergency Eats or Vermont Everyone Eats program, but something that I think that program showed us is that there is a real mental health, a real community health benefit to having people who are isolated and have a way to join in community activities. And being able to go out every once in a while and get a meal at a restaurant is not something that folks take lightly. I also want to flag that the gap between 60 and 65, folks in that age gap, they would be eligible for restaurant meals. They're not eligible for the cash out option. And that is the folks who are transitioning into retirement, right? Starting on a fixed income. And if we could ease the stigma for those people to access this really critical food security support of Three Squares Vermont, that would be tremendous, make a tremendous difference for people.
Another question. Oh, we have two more questions and then we're gonna go to our next witness.
It's more of a comment than a question, but your last point about the isolation, I think, is a really important one. I read the Surgeon General's report on loneliness, and he calls it an epidemic with very clear health risks associated with it. And I think the idea of getting folks out of their house, out of their isolation into the community is just an added benefit, health benefit. And he urges us to create systems that welcome that. So thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah.
Senator Williams.
So if somebody was going to have the EBT card, they're going to use it at a restaurant, is there some kind of a code in the card that says they've exceeded that amount of money, or can they just use that card until it's used up for restaurant meals?
Well, I believe that, you know, you have a set benefit amount for the month. Mm-hmm. And so you could use your card unless you no longer had Three Squares Vermont funds available on your card.
Okay. So if it was a participating restaurant, they'd have to have the point of sale system on their business. Yes. So
and that's why it's so important to build in technical assistance and support for this program. Without support for the agency to really help restaurants through the program and have a dedicated kind of staff person there to do that, we wouldn't support implementing the program without that assistance. It's critical.
Okay. Thank you. And make sure we get this in writing.
I absolutely will. Yeah.
She knows, Jenny.
Not necessarily. Michael Sear left. Is he out in the hall? Do we know? He is online. Never mind. Here we are.
Yep. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, so there's been a lively discussion so far, so I'm going to try to keep the testimony brief.
But before we begin, I'd just like to say, when you have a chance, give my best to Benji.
Of course, I will. I'm seeing him right after this meeting, actually. So
Right.
that's why I'm not there in person. So
I won't tell you the stories I know about him when he was growing up.
I won't either. So, so as a way of introduction, Michael Sear, I'm a resident of Richmond. I'm the Director of Business Development for the Skinny Pancake. We operate 6 locations across Vermont, as well as a commissary kitchen. We also have a location in Albany, New York. As a member of the Skinny Pancake team, I've witnessed firsthand the impact of involving community restaurants in our statewide food security initiatives. In March of 2020, as restaurants across the state were mandated to shutter to the public, we knew there had to remain a purpose for our employees still willing to work in the food in our walk-in fridges that was otherwise headed to compost. In a few short weeks, we spun up our Ship Meals program, inviting anyone in need of a meal to sign up in advance and pick up a heat and serve meal made in our kitchens. Instantly, we saw the gratitude this feeding program generated not only in the meal recipients, but also our entire team. It was clear we weren't the only restaurant eager to feed those in need. Soon enough, our Shift Meals program joined forces with many other initiatives across the state and became the state-administered Everyone Eats program. Not only did Everyone Eats facilitate the purchase and distribution of restaurant-prepared meals to community feeding programs, but also help provide access to those in need to receive nourishing, ready-to-eat meals directly from the restaurants themselves. In true Vermont fashion, restaurant participation in this program was necessitated by sourcing a significant portion of the meal's ingredients from local farmers and producers. What started as a means to keep our teams busy during a pandemic eventually provided real economic contribution to our restaurants. At times, over 10% of our revenue at certain locations was made possible by the restaurant voucher program. And we certainly weren't alone. As some members of our administrative team helped coordinate the hubs that organized Everyone Eats, we heard stories of restaurants being able to hire additional staff, expand operating hours, or even just keep their lights on. In our industry, where margins are razor thin, supplemental revenue from initiatives like these are crucial to maintaining them profitable. Somewhere along the course of this program, we were stunned as it became time to celebrate over 1 million meals served. That was over 1 million meals of economic impact for these restaurants and over 1 million meals fed to those who asked for one. When Everyone Eats and the digital voucher program finally ramped down, there was, of course, some relief in our return to normalcy. However, there was real regret that restaurants' role in providing food security to communities was going away. The introduction of a permanent program like this Restaurant Meals program, which would connect restaurants to ongoing feeding programs, would be very welcome to our restaurants, as I'm sure many others across the state. I would also like to add that I think any discussion about a Restaurant Meals program should also include the values that made Everyone Eat such a powerful experience for those of us involved in it. That includes sourcing from local farmers and producers, close connectivity with existing community aid programs, and prioritizing local and independently owned restaurants. In closing, all of the benefits that I've listed for the Everyone Eats program are from the Restaurant Meals program. It allows community members to use their SNAP benefits in community restaurants. It brings those communities together, and it provides restaurant-made meals to those who might not be able to prepare those meals themselves. In addition, it would provide meaningful economic support to our restaurant community that has gone through so much over the past few years. I strongly urge this committee to pass S215.
Thank you. That was succinct. And it would be really helpful to have that sent to us so we have a record of it on our committee webpage. Can you do that? Send it along to Kiki?
Yep, absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you. Questions? So the other, I do have a question for you. If and when this bill goes forward, and it will be important to have restaurants engaged in the discussion about, how to formulate what we do in Vermont. Are you interested in participating in that discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and other members of the Skinny Pancake team helped do that facilitation when we were in the early days of Shift Meals in addition with Everyone Eats. So that's why I'm here today. Programs like these are important to us in serving our community.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Other questions?
Not for Michael.
Okay. No other questions at this time, so thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to move on to Zachary Hughes, who is a community member and a 3 Squares recipient from Montpelier. Zachary, can you?
Maybe I can ask one. They mentioned a study associated with 215. Is that something that's gonna, how long is that gonna take?
Well, we'll have to look at the bill and see where it fits.
Okay, thank you.
Are you comfortable like that?
Yes, I'm fine, okay.
Good, thank you for being here, Zachary.
Good to see you, Chair Lyons, and committee members, good morning. Before I get started, I just wanted to say I'm Zach Hughes, and actually I am a former recipient of SNAP, but it's there in case I need it, and that's the important thing. I've almost applied for it in the last year. So here's the thing, I just want to mention a couple of things. I just heard concerns about the cash benefit. I think that's a risk that we have to take, a small one. I also have concerns about cash benefit, but I see it as a risk that was probably calculated as we went along here. And the other thing I want to just say, going hungry is something of a feeling you don't want. It's very, can make someone sick, stuff like that. So if we can help with that, it'd be wonderful. I just wanted to share that. And I will be submitting my written testimony to the committee as well. You know, I like to go off the cuff kind of. So there are three important things I want to talk about. First of all, this program is meant to help people. So say you all ended up without a job, or you ended up on the street or something like that. It's really meant to be that safe net thing. And here's the thing. We used to associate this program we called it food stamps. So that did not have the EBT card. There was real shame with it, you know, and the thing is, just want to know, you know, when you say food stamps, who here associates that with someone using the system or maybe somebody who is in a lower class? That is really the stigma that kind of goes on out there, even for those who are applying. And then, you know, I use the term food stamps just to bring that straight out, and I'm grateful that it's called 3 Squares now, and that we use an EBT card for the access. Here is the reality of the program. The reality is it actually boosts into the economy, so you're giving back to the economy for each time we do this, and I think that's the part people miss here, and in the community in general. So as we go, let's give this a boost. You know, let's look at ways. The restaurant thing is a great idea. Obviously work on it. You know, it's not going to be perfect, but it's great. It's a great idea because it also kicks the stigma. And I hate to say it, but groceries are just as expensive, if not more expensive, than restaurants in some cases. I've been out in restaurants and said, wow, I could probably get a meal, you know, get a couple meals out of that. So it's really just about realizing that, and then let's, you know, give it a boost with that. And let's look at ways in the future, if we can do it, to continue to streamline the program. I don't know how many times I've thought about applying and said, I don't know if I want to go through this. You know, and there's so many little requirements, and, you know, it's just very frustrating, especially when we have to decide, do I apply or not? And then let's be creative as we go through this process. So I'll yield to the committee at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And administrative burden is something we hear about a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, and having some, our eligibility program or IT go forward may help with this, but a lot of this is federal bureaucracy on top of this, so, yeah. Questions for Zachary?
Yes.
Go ahead, Senator Hardy. Oh, did you have one?
I did not.
Oh,
Okay. Hi, thanks for your
Hi,
testimony.
how are you?
I was just wondering why you're not
why you wouldn't apply for SNAP if you're eligible? Is it the stigma, the process?
I
Or
don't
is there
think it's the stigma anymore. I think it's a process.
Okay,
I think it was the stigma, but it wasn't really because I've been on it before.
uh-huh,
And I saw it as an accomplishment actually to come off. I
uh-huh,
think that's the other thing we miss. So if people can come off, that's a good thing. Any of the programs we can come off is a wonderful thing to be able to accomplish. But unfortunately in this economy, because unlike 25 years ago when I first came out, this economy, you might have to go back on, even if you have a job.
yeah,
And that's the sad part, that really is sad. And so, yes, I've come close. And the reason I didn't is because maybe I was looking better financially. So it all depends on finances, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions? Zachary, thank you.
That's easy, yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Well, so
more.
you've given us, but now you've given us another job, and that is to look at the administrative burden that's out there. Some of it under our control and some of it probably
course.
not.
Yes,
But-
well, thank you very much. And
Thank
again,
you.
I share your concerns, Senator, on the cash benefit side. Thank you.
Thanks. Good. So I think what we'll do is just take a break before we move on to the next bill. And Senator Gould, you can ask, more important, but, yeah.
You mean off the record?
Yeah.
Honora, can I ask you a question outside for a second?
And ask her about the second part of my